In this video, I'm going to show you how to do part 2 of assignment 1, Process Makes Perfect. I'm going to demo how to set up your document, clean it up, and begin coloring. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new document. We're going to select the print presets at the top. Make sure letters selected. Make sure the dimensions are listed as inches. Change the orientation as needed. And change the color mode to grayscale. Then hit create. So now I have my 8.5 by 11 working area. I'm going to place a scanned TIFF file into this document by going to File, Place Linked, and navigating to, I'm going to use, where is it? I'm on a PC, which is why this looks a little different. I'm going to use Genesia's as an example. Okay, so I'm going to hit this check mark to commit the transformation. And this image, the scan TIFF, has now been added to this document as a smart object. So I can see I've got my background layer and I've got my smart object I can turn on and off. I know this is a smart object because it has this little smart object thumbnail icon right here. It even says it when I hover over it. So the first thing that I want to do is clean this document up. So I'm going to double click the smart object icon, and that opens the image up on its own. So you can see here, this is the name of the TIFF file, the scan TIFF file. I'm just seeing this one layer in it. I can click back over here. This is the document that I just created that has the background layer and the smart object in it. Okay, so to clean up this image, I'm going to work inside the smart object file itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is duplicate the layer, and I'm going to name this Process. I'm going to hide this back. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is increase the contrast because I want to be working with a black and white image. So we're going to do that by adding a levels adjustment layer. So you can see here I've gone to the adjustments panel, clicking on levels, and I get my levels layer options. There's a lot of ways to work with this, but the simplest way is simply to click on these eyedroppers to get started. If you hover over each one, you'll notice they kind of describe what they'll do. So this is the white point dropper. So it says sample an image to set white point. So I know this background should be white. So I select it and it updates accordingly. And this text should be black. So if you zoom in, you can see that there's some pencil marks and bits of gray. There's still paper texture. I want that to be white. So now I can play with these sliders, and this is white, this is black, and this is gray. I'm going to slide the white over until the gray disappears, and I'm going to slide the black over until the black gets darker. And notice how if you just play with these sliders, you can see how it's gray, it's black, but then it gets too black. You know, you start to get this crazy detail here, and now I can't. There we go. So you're trying to find that like perfect spot where it looks pretty good and you get rid of all the gray texture. But be careful because you can see like the lines of these books are getting kind of thin in places. So let's see. Just playing with this until I get it about where I want it, which I think is somewhere around there. Okay, so now I've brightened this up. The next step is going to be cleaning the image up. So what I'm going to do is add a new layer. I'm going to name this Touch Up. And I'm now going to go and I'm going to work with the various selection tools and the spot healing brush and other things to clean up this mess. I want to make sure that sample all layers is turned on and that the touch-up layer is selected so that I'm making changes to this layer and not to the actual image itself. So if I turn the image itself off, you can see where I've made my corrections. And then also we can turn this on and off to see what's changed. So just going to go through here, clean up. You don't have to remove all of your marks. It's often nice to leave some of those handmade marks. But I'm going to remove anything that's like big and distracting. So this is the spot healing tool. And it does all the work for you. You simply just have to click and drag. So it just looks at what's around the spots that you're healing and makes a guess as to what you want, and usually it's right. So you can see right here, I worked on this last night and didn't have nearly as much of this of these little gray bits. So let me see if I can get rid of them just a little bit more by adjusting the levels layer. Okay, I think that definitely helps. You can see there's the original drawing, and here's what I'm cleaning up right now. So switching back to the touch-up layer, and I'm going to zoom in even more. I'm using the healing brush. Now, you can also, you can also use tools such as the selection brush. You can get in here, and if you've got your foreground color set to white, choose your brush tool to make the brush just a little bit larger, and you can just paint white in here. Sometimes it's easier to just work with making a selection and then paint inside of that selection. Or you can freehand it. Anyways, so for your document, you're going to go around your entire document cleaning it up like that. I'm just going to hit a few more spots on this and then move on to the next step. So I'm pressing J for my shortcut for the spot healing tool. Let me see if there's anything that looks weird. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this menu in the Layers panel and click Merge Visible. Or you can right-click on a layer and click Merge Visible. And so you can see that all of the layers that were turned on, it just merged them into one layer. The next thing I'm going to do is select my magic wand tool, and with the tolerance set to 32, contiguous turned off, and sample all layers turned on, I'm going to select the white of the image and then press delete. This is going to leave you with like a nice clean black outline of your drawing. So now I'm going to add a new layer. I just pressed D to set my foreground and background colors back to the default. And I'm going to press Control or Command Delete to fill the background of this layer with white so that I can see what I'm working with a little easier. I'm now selecting the touch-up layer. I just pressed Command T for transform, which you can also get to under Image, under Edit, transform, scale. I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller so it fits on the page a little better, so I can space it better. On a Mac, you're going to want to hold Shift to constrain the proportions when you're scaling and scale by this corner. And so then I'm going to press the check mark to confirm that change. So now you can see it fits a little better on the page. So let's see. So compare it to the before. So there's what we started with. And here's where we're at now. So much improved. Now, if you are working with an image and you need to move your elements around, which most of you probably want to do, now's the time to take your selection tool, make sure you're on your touch-up layer or whatever your layer is that is just the black of your drawing. And now's when you're going to like start selecting and cutting pieces apart so that you can move them around. So I drew a selection around that. Gonna go to Edit Cut. You could also press Command X or Control X, and I just pressed Control V or Command V to paste it on the page. So let's just say I want to move some stuff around. You can see that this how to make a vision board title, the how to make part is now on its own layer. So I'm going to name that so I know what it is. So now I'm going to go back to the touch-up layer, and I'm going to, well, let's cut out. We'll make 2019 its own layer. Going back to the touch-up layer, now we're going to select vision board so we can move this title information around a little bit. Command X, Command V. Here, let's spread it out. That looks kind of fun. And if you're ever not sure what layer something is on, you can figure it out by simply going through each layer and turning them on and off. So that's 2019, so I'm just going to go ahead and rename that 2019. There's vision board, vision board. Oh, let's fix the spelling. Okay, so now I'm going to cut each of these steps up so that I can move them around a little bit as well. So this one, I'm going to have to, it's so tight, I'm going to have to come back in and probably edit my selection. So this almost touches. So using the lasso tool, making sure that the setting up here, add to selection, is selected. I drew a line here. I think that'll look fine when I cut it. So Command X, Command V. So now I can spread that out, give these things a little more space. Okay, so let's just say I don't want to work on this whole thing. Oh, okay, so if you're having problems like right there, I was trying to select something. So when you've got the move tool selected and you're making selections, if you look up here and auto select is turned on, Photoshop is basically, it's going to guess at what you're trying to select based on the pixels you click. So like right here, I clicked on the black pixels of this thing, so it switched to that layer. I just clicked on the white background, so it switched this background layer. Well, okay, so right here, I'm trying to click on vision board. You know, let's say you're zoomed out. You can't really tell where you're clicking. I'm trying to click on it, but I'm still clicking on the background. You have to be on top of the pixels to get it. So normally that's a nice feature to have turned on. However, if you're having trouble making selections, you can turn that off, and then you will only be able So to move whatever layer is selected or multiple layers are selected. So like 2019, you can see the transformation box popped up. Same for how to make each layer I go through, I can see what's going on. Or if I select multiple layers, you can kind of see like what's selected. So FYI, some people were having trouble with that earlier. Okay, so you know what, we're just going to go with this. Okay, so let's say that this is laid out exactly the way I want it to, and I'm ready to start coloring. So I'm going to hit Command or Control Save. Hit OK. You could also go to File and Save. And I'm going to close this image. We'll close after it's complete. Okay. So because this is a smart object, it's linked to this other document that I placed it in. So all of the changes that I just made are going to be reflected in the other document, which we can see that they are. So now I've got my background layer and this layer. Oh, but I forgot to turn the white layer off in this document. So I'm going to double click this icon to open it back up. Okay, so I need to turn that white layer off. Yeah, that's what I want. So Command Save. And then you can do Command or Control W to close, or click the little X. Until you get comfortable with the tools, it's probably best to like physically move your mouse to like the file menus and stuff. But for tools and options that you use like repeatedly, like save and close and things like that, you want to start learning the shortcut keys because it will just save you so much time. Okay, so now we can see that I have a white background layer and I have the process drawing, just the black inked lines. So my next step is going to be positioning this on my page as I would like. I might even make this a little small. I'm going to scale it down just a little bit because if we print these out, we want to have a margin around the edges so that the printer doesn't scale it down even further. And I think that looks about right. Okay, so now for the fun part. The very first thing you need to do is go to Image, Mode, and now we're going to convert this to RGB color mode. You don't want to flatten it, and you don't want to rasterize. Okay, so now we're going to go and create a new layer, and we're going to drag this layer in between the drawing and the background so that it's sandwiched in the middle. And I'm going to name this layer pink. Depending on what you're doing, you might want to work differently, but often I'll create like a different layer for each color I'm going to work with. Or sometimes, you know, like you could also create a layer and you could separate your color by area. I find that generally speaking, especially if you're working with solid colors, creating a new layer for each color you're working with is helpful, at least in the beginning. So I want to make the background pink. I think the fastest way to select the background is going to be using the magic wand tool. I want to make sure Sample All Layers is on, and I'm going to click Contiguous, which basically means continuous. Like all, so it's only going to select the white that is connected. And so now I'm going to select a pink color. Just go with a hot pink. The brush tool, I'm using the bracket key to make my brush bigger. You could also go to the brush menu up here, and I'm just sweeping this over the image. So you can see that there's pink in this square, which I don't want, and there's white here that I don't want. So, and it's because the black, these are areas that were enclosed or open. And so right here, I'm just going to click the magic wand tool, click the brush, down here for the scissors, if you look closer, you can see that there was a gap, which is why the pink went into that square. And so to fix this square, I'm going to use the Polygonal Lasso tool. And I'm just kind of going to follow these black lines. To create the outline of that shape. And because I'm on the pink layer, I'm going to press delete to delete the pink from that area. So now clicking out, all right, that looks pretty good. So, I did it on my yellow layer, so I got to rename it pink. All right, yellow. It's worth taking the extra time to stay organized in the beginning because it will save you just a lot of trouble down the road. So now I want to make this text yellow. So I'm going to click inside each letter with the magic wand tool, including the gaps within these letters. Making sure to get inside the O's, the B, there's a little bit right there. You may have to zoom in even further to get the selections exactly where you want them. And I'm going to make this a light yellow. That is my crazy cat in the background. He does that all day long. It is really crazy and annoying. Okay, so I think I also want to make these little banners yellow. So once again, I think the magic wand tool is well, actually, no, I don't think the magic wand tool is the easiest in this selection. So because basically, if you hide the outline, we're working with these shapes. I actually think that the Polygonal Lasso tool is super fast. All right. Yeah, so that was super fast. So, as you can see, just going along and working with those. So here's an area where you can see I can't really use the magic wand tool because there's an open area. So I'm going to want to use one of the lasso tools. Maybe even that doesn't work. You definitely want the lasso tool. So I'm going to start with the Polygonal Lasso tool. And for this example, I'm going to draw this part. And then I'm going to switch to the freehand just to show you that when you're working with the selection tools, if you look at the top, there are different options. And if you hover over them, they'll tell you, this one is for a new selection. So if I click that and then I draw a new selection, notice that that was deselected. So I'm going to Command Z to back up. If I click this, add to selection, and I draw a new selection area, it adds that to the current selection. If I click subtract from selection, it subtracts that area from the selection. And then I'm honestly not sure how this one's going to work because I don't use intersect very often. Okay, that's what it does. So for the intersect with selection, it only keeps what overlaps between the two selected shapes. So see, it's got this one. See how this area is going to be within both, and it just keeps that. That's how that one works. I don't use that very often. Okay, so usually you want add to selection. I almost always have mine set to add to selection, and when I want to subtract from selection, I use a modifier key, which is Shift on a Mac and Alt on a PC. So I'm holding down Shift right now, not that I need to. And then I'm pressing Control. Okay, there we go. Okay, so notice how the the tool changes. Okay, so without pressing anything down, I'm adding to the selection. When I hold Alt, well, which is, I'm starting to get confused because I'm working on a PC. Pretty sure that's Option on a Mac. When I hold it down, that plus changes to a minus, and you can also see that it's reflected up here at the top. So it changes from add to selection to subtract from selection. So I'm going to subtract that from the selection. Okay, now I'm going to get rid of all of it because I don't need that. The other thing I wanted to show you is when you're using the lasso tools, let's say you don't remember, you can't find where your endpoint is, you can press Control or Command, and that little plus sign will change to a circle. And the next time you click, it will like connect all the dots so that you can close things up. Okay, so now let's just finish this up. All right, I'm going to press Control so that it'll complete. Oh, and I missed a little spot, so let me just draw that in. Okay, so now let's just paint this yellow too while we're at it. Anyways, so that's how you add color to your document. You'll have your trace layer, you'll have your color layers, your background layer, and then when you get your image colored and looking exactly the way you want it, you're going to go to File, Save, and actually you should save your document before now, but now you know. But you're going to go to File, Save, and you're going to name it your first initial, last name, underscore, A1P2 for assignment 1, project 2, and hit save. And so this is due on Tuesday before class, uploaded to your OneDrive folder. So in your final student work folder, you're going to create a folder named A1-Process Makes Perfect. You will move your original scanned TIFF that looks something more similar to that into that folder, and you will also upload your colored file to that folder. You will upload your PSD. You will also upload a JPEG. To create the JPEG, you're going to go to File, Save As, and select JPEG. This will save a flattened version of this image that's much smaller in file size and will load much quicker when we go to look at them. If you have any questions, you can send me an email over the weekend. Remember to have this done before class on Tuesday. I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone does. The progress in class today was looking good, so they're going to be fun.